Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We have three marvelous poets with us today, James Cushing, David Trinidad, and Celeste Goyer. Jim will read first, then David, and then Celeste. James Cushing, born 1953 in Palo Alto, California, holds a doctorate in English from UC Irvine. From 1989 through 2020, when he retired, he taught literature and creative writing at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and served as the community's poet laureate for 2008 to 2010. Cushing's poems have appeared in many journals, and his 30-year association with Cahuenga Press has resulted in 7 full-length collections of poetry, the most recent of which is Tangled Hologram. His daughter is the New York-based poet Iris Cushing. Here's a brilliant poet, James Cushing.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you so much. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, MPTF, for the extraordinary experience of getting to share a reading with 2 of the people who are closest to me personally, whom I also consider as some of the very finest poets of my generation. This is something that I've hoping would happen for quite a while, and now it is. So, thank you all very much and welcome. I'm going to read some poems written over the past few months, and I chose these because I've never shared them with any sized group before. So I wanted to do something, you might say, special for MPTF and for Harry's program. In the land of waiting. I withdraw some money, start my car, drive west to my friend's apartment. Ghosts throng the highway, their picnics filling every green median divider. They inhabit a continuous evening all their own. They want only praise for their diets, praise for the vapor that rises above their ghostly invisible heads in one big sad cloud made up of atomic elements that long ago became stars and mountains. What pull they had to accomplish this landscape. A driver ahead of me has forgotten to turn off his signal. His red blinker reminds me of the smell of drying paint. Now the ghosts have finished their picnics. The sheets they sat on have become giant calendars whose pages the ghosts resume turning, just as in movies when the pure passage of time becomes the subject, which indicates the plot has turned, that someone has started snipping at my pillow with scissors, releasing dreams like insects into the air. And I must adjust my mirrors as my exit hurtles closer to my car. Unfinished business. I loaded the train I feel riding inside me with gemstones, candles, and scarlet flowers. I cracked the code of men with my mother's sharp scissors. I removed my clothes and became a photo of my father. Something is still very wrong in this house. The guardians we trusted are packing their duffels, leaving behind their wish for death. Though we had not planned for it, our bathroom is filled with pomegranates. A woman pretends to walk through the door while thunder pretends to accompany her. Come, train, show me your sleeping compartment. I am an item on your calendar, easy to anticipate, hard to persuade. In less than 15 minutes, your breathing trees, your blue rectangles will be hidden from me. Night owls will lie down in scratchy dirt. It's not clear whether anyone escapes. I blow a crumb of chocolate off a page of the book I keep trying to read. This one's called Hidden Witness, and the title refers to the situation that's presented in the first line. Hidden Witness. I'm speaking from inside a freestanding wooden closet. I keep it from being something empty. That's my task. The purple shadowy light in here is a big brute with dignity. The life outside this cozy scene can get dense and tricky. All my role models are seated outside in the light rain on the edge of wet park benches, trying to tie their shoes. I know that a bigger brute lives outside this closet, but he's hard to distinguish from the gloom. Inside, I can stand behind myself without distress, in front of myself with patience. I felt affection while staring at a knot of wood on the closet wall, and I've heard syllables filled with fragrance spoken by someone rummaging for a down vest or a good cold weather jacket. And now I hear the sound of rain from a window, and a band begins to play their first song. The song becomes an inanimate object out to conquer the world. It runs out in the rain or into a dream of the rain and its big gift. I watch as the song gives itself to the air and the earth, meandering downward to a silent core. The band begins the song again, this time slower and in a darker key. I know we have some people in the audience who know a good deal about motion pictures, so this one's for all of you. It's called Sunset Boulevard. No, I don't mean the East-West corridor in Los Angeles. I mean the 1950 masterpiece directed by Billy Wilder with Gloria Swanson and William Holden. It's in 3 parts. Sunset Boulevard. 1. How many times have we watched this movie? We prove our love for it by attending to its tiny details. The slightly raised voice, the crepe collar, the black dot in the corner that indicates an imminent reel change. Maybe we want to know it the way an ox knows the cart it hauls. Maybe we want to consume it, swallow until it's nothing but papers scattered on a floor. 2. The movie is a swimming pool where I told you I would meet you with a view of the sycamores we liked. And now that we're under its water, I feel encouraged. Spring must be coming soon. You and I have already become 2 sycamores planted in the swimming pool, and we must pause a moment, becoming human again. The bedroom door is open. Both bed and chair wait empty. My reading glasses sit on top of a book. I turn now and point to the surface of the pool, its scenes of blooming white refractions loose and steady. In the house, the bedroom doors have no locks, no knobs. There's an unexplained jewel in everything, and neither of us can shut our eyes to what its dream brings, what candles, what warnings. 3. The movie was made when citizens found personal meaning in asteroid trails crossing the night sky. In scene after scene, we feel as if we're jumping from a plane, yanking open our parachute, rising a bit on the air before descending. And then We pat our hair and our lips, trade in our old scratched glasses for clearer ones, wave back at the nest we have abandoned. When we feel cruel, we regret our past. Sudden unnatural brightness. The soaked book's pages have gotten stuck together, hiding all the addresses and numbers I needed. As a result, I'm trapped here. The day has turned into a hitchhiker standing in the rain beside a highway, his desire for a warm, dry ride holding him tightly. I know what his shoes are telling him, and what the long fields of spider-filled thistle have yet to tell him, that soon night will be hissing around him. A driver will give way to curiosity, and he will sit on a dry, upholstered seat, his patience having landed, done its work. Still, the pages in my book are blocks of ruined paper. As I try to open them, each one breaks into pieces in my hand, and I touch my forehead with one broken piece. The inky paper looks like discolored meat, and I suddenly know I am the hitchhiker, the coarse-faced man trespassing in this wet library, alert to the hands that grab ankles, the belt that scowls. I hear a faucet, then I see a light. This next poem is a pantoum, a form that I'm very fond of, which involves not the repetition of sounds or the repetition of individual words, but the repetition of entire lines, so that each line occurs twice in the poem, and I hope occurs at a somewhat different angle. Dear Charles Darwin is the title. Mr. Darwin, won't you tell me why you made our world and how its tale of evolution ends? Will there be a last revelation? Why you made the world asks the same question as will there be a last revelation? I'm shaking my old rattling head, asking the same question because the answer has never been the same. I'm shaking my old rattling head, which understands less every morning because the answer can never be the same. I like my coffee strong, but I add milk and understand less every morning. The numbers on all my clocks reach outward. I like my coffee strong, but I add milk. Now that you have opened my Darwin window, the numbers on all my clocks reach outward toward the egg-shaped empty space above me. Now that my Darwin window stands open, everyone I ever knew begins to float and rise through the egg-shaped empty space above it. They kiss the moons of Jupiter, Saturn's bright rings. Everyone I ever knew begins to float. I rise from dreams with their image in mind. They kiss the moons of Jupiter. Saturn's bright rings trace nonchalant orbits through the dark, like dreams. With their image in mind, Mr. Darwin, won't you tell me, as you trace nonchalant orbits through the dark, how this tale of evolution ends? I'm going to close with a poem that makes specific reference to our next reader. This is entitled "When My Daughter Called." I love reading Denise DeHamel's Pink Lady and David Trinidad's classic Layer Cakes, because Denise and David had mothers who clearly loved them. And these poems magnify that love while lifting it up into the tragic context of loss and death. But these poems also cause me sadness and envy because by the time I turned 35, more than half my life ago now, my own mother's alcoholism had so completely taken over that she was no longer capable of love. So I had to cut her out of my life. And for her last 10 years on earth, we did not see one another or speak. And the late April morning when she died, We were living 3,000 miles apart. And when my daughter called with the news, my first and strongest feeling was relief. I would never smell her bourbon, her ashtray breath, never see her angry face or hear her bitter, sarcastic tone again. And I can't make a poem out of that. Now, can I? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for such a visually striking, poignant, astonishing reading. We're following you all the time to see where you're going, and you just go so deep and so far out. Just a pleasure to hear you and hear your new work. You're so prolific. So thank you, James Cushing, once again for just an astounding reading.
Thank you.
Our next poet is David Trinidad. David Trinidad's most recent books are New Playlist and Hollywood Cemetery. His other books include Sleeping with Basho, Digging to Wonderland, Memory Pieces, and Notes on a Past Life. He is also the editor of A Fast Life, the collected poems of Tim DeLugos, Punk Rock is Cool for the End of the World, poems and notebooks of Ed Smith, and Divining Poets Dickinson, and Emily Dickinson tarot book. Trinidad lives in Los Angeles. Here's a magnificent poet, David Trinidad.
Thanks, Harry, for asking me to read again. I'm really happy to be reading with Jim and Celeste, fellow cinephiles and friends. These are all relatively recent poems. Ode to Vienna Sausage. For an after-school snack while watching reruns of sitcoms in the family room, you'd grab a can from the pantry, pop open the lid by the metal pull tab, a recent modern convenience, and behold the rounded tops of the sausages, 6 circling one in the center, like bullets in the cylinder of a revolver. With your fingers, you try to extract one, no easy feat, as they were tightly packed and coated with a slippery film of transparent gelatin. But once you freed the first, the rest were loose enough to pluck right out. You could greedily eat each sausage whole or savor in several bites. They looked like little hot dogs, but had a fancy, delectable taste. Your mother would be miffed if you helped yourself, as she was saving them for a special occasion. She'd learned, from recipes on labels and in magazines like Good Housekeeping, how to transform the plain sausages into holiday hors d'oeuvres, smoked in a morass of thick barbecue sauce, baked in a blanket of puff pastry, or diced and skewered with a cube of cheese and a slice of green olive on party picks, like miniature kebabs. I'd be loath to try one now. Another childhood taste, I'm sure, would fail to live up to the memory of it, like Triscuits or Wheat Thins. Or those international coffees, like Vienna Sausage, a suburban novelty, that came in small rectangular tins and were promoted in television commercials by a stagey actress named Carol Lawrence, who promised you the flavor of exotic lands, Café Francais, Swiss Mocha, and Café Vienna, home of the beloved sausages. The lid was oval and sunken into the top of the tin, so you had to pry it open with a spoon. Once you did, you'd be hit with a whiff of sweet and strangely spicy brown powder. After the poet Charles Simic died in 2023, I pulled one of his books from a bookshelf and discovered that I had underlined a number of his lines. So I made this collage out of them. Hotel Simic. At the edge of a village bloodied by the setting sun, a dive with dim lights and middle-aged waitress. The kisses she blows to us are as cold as prison walls. Here then are the small beads of rain rapping against the window pane the day your grandmother died. To pass the time, I played a teensy fiddle using one of my love's long black eyelashes as a bow. My future is my past, the scratchy record sang, till the clock coughed up its first drop of blood. 100 horror films are crammed in my head, the undeveloped film of the few clear moments of our blurred lives. The fleeting moments know no care as they go around collecting memories that do not belong to them. That's what the leaves are all upset about tonight. This is a found poem, a customer review I came across on Amazon.com. Depressing as heck, verified purchase. This movie was not about Chinatown. I know it's a classic, and I was really excited to watch it with my sister for her college project, but it sucked. Big disappointment. The title is misleading. Only the last literal 2 minutes of the story took place in Chinatown. Perhaps I'm missing something, but I really didn't see the connection of Chinatown to the rest of the movie. The ending was depressing as heck. Heck, the whole story was depressing as heck. I will say, however, that the murder mystery aspect of it is really good, hence a 4-star review. Very cool watching how it all played out. But dang, it was depressing. I wasn't expecting a happy ending. I already knew the ending going in, just wasn't sure of the build-up to it. But I really wasn't expecting such a brutal and hopeless story the whole way through. Haven't seen anything this depressing since The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So, to sum up, if you like depressing classic movies, you'll love this. If you are expecting anything else, or if you're prone to depression, please don't watch this movie. For many years, Elaine Equi and I have been writing and dedicating pink poems to each other. This is my latest installment of our pink correspondence. Pink filmography for Elaine Equi. The Pink Panther, Strike Me Pink. Pink Flamingos, Pretty in Pink. Ride the Pink Horse, The Return of the Pink Panther. The Pink Jungle, Pinky. The Fuzzy Pink Nightgown. Pink Floyd, Live at Pompeii. Heller in Pink Tights. The Pink Panther Strikes Again. A Little Dream About the Moon. Earlier time on Earth, the moon is attached to a wide telephone pole-like pole and not that high in the sky. So it's possible to climb up the pole and touch the moon. I wrote this after watching the Blu-ray of the restored version of Hitchcock's Psycho. Psycho, the restored footage. More skin when Janet Leigh takes off her black bra. More blood on Norman's hands after the shower scene. Martin Balsam gets more stabs at the bottom of the stairs. The last couple of years, I've been obsessed with what's known as the University of Idaho killings. So I wrote this sonnet in August of 2023. Dylan and Bethany. If BK turns out to be guilty, says one impassioned YouTuber, I'll gladly pull the trigger myself. Firing squad now legal in state where the unalivings took place. But explain the 8-hour delay. Why didn't those girls call 911? Why the inept and or corrupt PCA? Explain the total lack of DNA. One grieving father, now an MSM celebrity, believes the phone pings prove the case. He wants BK's blood. Makes me think of Max von Sydow in The Virgin Spring. But vengeance is not justice. All we know is that something's rotten in Idaho. My appearances and other people's dreams. I was telling Shanna Compton about seeing a couple bowling naked, and we laughed and laughed. I called Elaine Equi Mrs. Howell. Alyssa ran across a room to give me a hug. My torso and head were encapsulated in glass filled with water and light pink blooms, not roses, so she just hugged the glass. It seemed perfect in a lot of ways. Nicole Wilson was walking down the street and we crossed paths. I was so happy to see you. Michael Robbins, you missed a train in my dream last night. You, me, and someone else, no idea of their identity, were in Europe, I think. We could see you shrinking in the distance of the platform, and we somehow knew it unlikely you'd catch the next train. Lynn Crosby, I dreamed you had an eccentric, sexy boyfriend. He was a visual artist. I never have dreams, so take heed. Camille Guthrie was picking out a present for me. I found a pink bag, sort of a fanny pack, but not, with a teen Olivia Newton-John on it, but I worried, does David even like Olivia Newton-John? Elaine, I forgot to tell you I had a dream where you drove us across the ocean, Pacific, and we were chatting and ignoring holograms of sea monsters and burning ships. It was like a Disney Odyssey. Hollywood Forever. Today I placed 5 pink carnations on Peggy Shannon's grave. There was a period in my life when the only time I felt at peace was when I was watching a Jean Arthur movie. This is another sonnet. It's composed of lines about the moon from the poems of Borges. Playing with moonlight. Let the moon come to the verse you pen, moon of gold, a bloody scarlet moon, moons that shed their silver on my lines. Moons I have found in verse, the moon in silver tones of Virgil, the clarity of moonlight, the moonlight on the street. To be grateful for the gifts of the moon, the courtyard filled with slow and weightless moonlight, the silent friendship of the moon that never ceases to surprise. It was a clear moonlit night without a breath of air. Beneath the moon, I did not see. And this is the last poem I'll read. After I watched a movie from the early 1930s, and I don't even remember which one it was, I sent a screenshot of a woman fingering her pearls to Amy Gersler. In the subject line, I wrote, "If pearls could talk." Amy wrote back that that should be the title of a poem. So I wrote this. If pearls could talk, for Amy Gersler. If pearls could talk, they'd tell us that this brunette with the Marcel wave in a low-cut black evening dress with gardenia corsage, who twists a strand of them around her index finger and stares after her tuxedoed lover, who has just spurned her, with murder in her eyes, will in fact, later that night, shoot and kill him in his Art Deco apartment and be discovered by her adult son, also in tux, who will help her escape through the servants' entrance and then stage the scene to make it look like a burglary gone wrong. But before he can finish wiping prints and mussing up the furniture, is found out by the butler, and so, being a devoted son, must take the rap for his socialite mater. Her husband, none other than the district attorney, declines to try the case, it involving his son, but when the son, still shielding the mother, refuses to open up, his pater has no choice but to prosecute. If pearls could talk, they'd tell us that the son, found guilty, is sentenced to the penitentiary, where he becomes naturally a model prisoner, and that the butler, who has all the letters the mother wrote to her lover, reappears and attempts to blackmail her. Trimmed in fur and wearing pearls, and with $5,000 and a pistol in her purse, the mother meets the butler at the dead lover's apartment. But unbeknownst to her, she is followed there by the son's fiancé, who alerts the district attorney as to what is taking place. If pearls could cut to the chase, they tell us that before the mother can finish burning the letters, her husband arrives, she pulls the pistol on him, they struggle, and she is accidentally killed. If anyone ever deserved it, he says, standing over her dead body, she did. I'm sure the pearls would spare us the final courtroom scene in which the now exonerated son, who has a law degree, of course, successfully defends his father, who is in line to become the next governor. If only they could. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was really beautiful. I love the clarity and your captivating narrative and the humor. There's just so much humor in your poetry, and it's also loving and tender. And I love the connections you have with fellow poets, your camaraderie. So thank you, David Trinidad, for just such a lovely reading. Our next poet is Celeste Goyer. Celeste Goyer is a poet and visual artist living in Los Angeles, California. Her collection, The Shoes of Our Guests, which I love, was released by Giant Claw Press in 2023. She edited a literary quarterly for 14 years, and her poems have appeared in Apurgus, Scoundrel Time, and the Columbia Review, among others. Here's an extraordinary poet, Celeste Goyer.
Thank you so much, Harry, and thank you to MPTF and Jennifer, and to my fellow readers. It's such a joy to read alongside you both. I'm going to open with a poem by someone else. This is by Thomas Lavelle Beddoes. I came upon this little book the other day. I've had it in my library for 47 years. This is called Song. How many times do I love thee, dear? Tell me how many thoughts there be in the atmosphere of a new fallen year, whose white and sable hours appear the latest flake of eternity. So many times do I love thee, dear. How many times do I love again? Tell me how many beads there are in a silver chain of evening rain, unraveled from the tumbling main, and threading the eye of a yellow star. So many times do I love again. Okay. And I'll read a mix of new and some older pieces, all of which will be in a forthcoming collection of mine. Sticky kitchen dust. The oven clock struck midnight, its grooved red knob a good place to dry wishbones. The rebels waited there too, with their version of events. Admittedly, your part in this fable was small. You entered the house to receive a soul in the shape of your wishes, an end game so finite it would fit in the dusty spice rack between cardamom and dill. You wanted to win. You studied the symmetry of the inverted V for structural advantage. You secretly believed your breastbone's finger of cartilage was your own wishbone. You traced its outline, pushed on its flex. Wearing rubber gloves and apron, the moon's stand-in washed dishes in salty blue bath water. On the wall near the sink, a phone where she sometimes spoke French, sprinkled with English brand names. You squinted up into her glow. There were no requirements for childhood in this kitchen besides proximity and readiness. When baby teeth departed, puzzlement grew in, the seed pearls of refusal. Testing the color fastness of failure. Sidewalks. How many places had she lived that had none? Towns too sprawling with lots full of goat head sticker weeds and cheap beat houses to even find the notion of going somewhere funny. The children grew up on sidewalks in her hometown, common room of children and trees, network through the adult world, but safe and separate from it. A gray scroll recording the invented instructions of every game. Houses hold hands through sidewalks, show us how it's done. But when developer Newt Bass built Apple Valley, the script read Cowboy Romance and Dude Ranch to the Stars. He drove a convertible Cadillac with horns on the grill and silver dollars on the dash. He made himself out of bullshit and nothing, the way he cleared a spot in the sand and drew roads with a fat finger. Across the highway from Roy and Dale's house, apple orchards from the marketing department crisped in the blue noon for 5 years, sterile, roots reaching for surface rain before dying in place. They did not know to go deep. The homeless and the sign waggers duck their heads into telephone pole shadows, all higher functions comatose, torpedoed by the bronzed weight of the heat. Sidewalks, just another surface, too painful to touch. On the winter bridge. It is very far away tomorrow, judging by my ridiculous haircut. I'm puffy with rising, but no crust yet. In this photo, I'm leaning forward to see the river's comforting one-way arrow. Chin on my hands, I wait for milk's power to suddenly end. That feeling pushes the current. It makes a line on a tablecloth everyone can see. It grows, but there is no skin. I'm doing without too, growing out a senior year perm, looking at what I can't see. It's incredible how the smallest paths point to the next landing by not doing as planned. Swelling as it climbs, the out-of-town bus can't wait to see us. This poem is in 7 small parts, and it's called That Empty Birdcage Sound. 1. Last night, a tea cart followed me onto the train. We all looked with suspicion at the jam tarts, the finger sandwiches. When would it begin its well-practiced routine? Who among us would it target? 2. I dreamed my sofa was a clenched fist that finally relaxed and opened its palm. Coins I couldn't reach sank deeper between its fingers, still out of reach. 3. The storybook in my backpack had a chapter missing, the one where stuntman Frankie Darrow climbs inside a 7-foot-tall robot named Robbie, his silent muscling of its bulk, a kind of extra awkward suit of armor. for bread around the world grows tired of its many nicknames. I'm a simple woman, says bread. I can't keep track of all this. She sits alone, grows a good stale crust as she thinks about the days passing. 5. The storm in my pocket wears an old-fashioned coat of arms. It wants to be remembered, respected, for the destruction it mercifully withholds from our cities, our coastlines. Now who will adopt its leftover wind, the only child of its eye? 6. Someone's been grilling seashells in the corridor again, stacking them against our doors at night. They make small ceramic noises when the more heavy-footed residents walk past to their early morning jobs. 7. Bend down and you'll see the birds are small, dark clouds. How can such chaos rule in the calm grids of our homes? There's nothing abstract about winter. I hear winter through the wall, pulling tape from canvas, preparing her subtle stripes for dawn. Once through an open door, I saw her sitting inert on the side of a bed, feet on the floor, dreaming through lidded eyes, dressed for working, sweatshirt, soft pants, canvas shoes. As next-door neighbors go, I have no complaints. She's quiet enough, a singleton with a painting obsession, though I sense a hidden steel there, like modern tires fed up with potholes. All through the autumn wee hours, I hear her scritchy pen. Imagine she's drawing up her campaign, its many layers visible in cutaway, a vitrified marsh with frosting, my role model. And this longer piece is called Ma Tante Toinette, and came into being after finding a very old family photograph. Ma Tante Toinette. Above the stone building, snowbanks, rivers, and mills. Tante Toinette sleeps in the old photo, hands folded over, a solo bride in satin box. In death, still waiting for the ghost husband who tested her. My mother's voice grew silky when she spoke of her Aunt Antoinette, her namesake, the cloistered nun, as though she saw moonlight on custard when she spoke her name. With 7 babies, angry husband, my mother needed an island of peace and order, a counterbalance of belief. Even though the Maison Saint-Domitil was no curtain of pearls, and Tante Toinette likely watched over wayward women and incorrigible girls in the convent laundry for most of her life, with absolute denial of her nature, her only act of will. But family mythology sleeps deeply, and time's long and flat as a hallway. She sleeps, face concealed, a white glove in a drawer, scraps of cotton and string holding in everything soft that would give to a touch. My mother's lost dreams, her career as a singer, her home in Lowell near her parents, Sunday dinners, one son a priest, one daughter a nun, her language alive in the family kitchen. She carried a pain like frostbite, a sadness that she hid in kindness. Tante Toinette's tiny penciled handwriting in French covers the back of photos sent to her parents. She stands with the others in white habits, all dark, wiry shadows tucked away. She hovers like a cloud or a stubborn headstone in a vegetable garden beside a shiplap house. If understanding is snow, desire is acumen, a fine powder. One bead on a rosary under a cloche of glass, the breath of winter rivers on her skin. And I'll close with another family poem called Things I Boasted About When I Was 6. Since writing this, I have thought of several others, but I have not yet added to added to the poem. Things I boasted about when I was 6. My mother walked across 6 lanes of traffic to the hospital when she was about to have twins. My mother broke her leg jumping out of an airplane. Someone was hanged in the attic of our carriage house. The bloodstain is still there. My grandpa was a jail warden, a butcher, and a Cadillac salesman. My other grandfather died trying to save horses from a burning barn. Our house is next door to a funeral parlor, across the street from a hospital, and down the road from the cemetery. My brother and my sister have been in jail. We're part French and part Indian, like the French and Indian War. I mistakenly believed the French were at war with the Indians. I'm only here because my father wanted an airplane. He traded my mother for a baby girl. My brother Peter built a birch bark canoe by himself from scratch. One of my siblings took their confirmation name, Aloysius, from our tomcat. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, David and Jim. Such a joy to read with you.
Thank you, Celeste. Those poems about your family, they're so lovely and touching and humorous. You know, you're one of the few people I can use the word witty. You know, there's a wittiness about you, and you're always surprising, obviously surreal, but you make us see things in a new way. You know, they're new and they're refreshing. So you wake up the language for us and you take us down lanes at putting things together in a new way. And I just love your poetry. And this is really a fabulous writing between 3 wonderful poets. What I would like is for each one of you to say something about the other 2 poets' poetry. And then after we go around with that, I have a couple of questions to ask you. So let's go in the order of the reading, Jim and David and Celeste, and talk about the poetry that you heard of the others. Jim Cushing.
Thank you, Harry. Listening to David read is always a special treat for me because there are so many layers going on in his poems, layers of memory and imagination, layers of factuality, layers of feeling, the desire to make a poem in the most artful possible sense, combined with the desire to tell the truth as it was seen. You know, all these things create these wonderful paradoxes, and then to hear David's kind of calm, reassuring, friendly, approachable, magnificent San Fernando Valley voice speaking these beautiful words. It's yeah, I mean, it's the poetry reading equivalent of a really good meal in a really good restaurant. As far as Celeste goes, well, it's no secret that Celeste and I are live together, and we are in an intimate relationship as beloveds. So I'm not even going to pretend to be, quote, objective. I mean, I can't even say it without laughing. But all I'll say is that before we ever started dating, I had heard her read her poems, and the poems I heard her read, even though they were earlier works, were very much of the same general style and you know, the magical blend of the observed and the imagined, with real care for language that we just heard. So it was the poetry that first attracted me to her. So so more than that, I shouldn't possibly say. The last thing I'll say about David Trinidad and Celeste Goyer as poets is, hey, everybody, read their work.
David?
You know, I knew you were going to ask this. And the last time I was on, you did this, and I was so put on the spot I didn't feel that I was very articulate, so I took notes this time. I don't know if they'll help me very much, but about Jim's work, and he just said this about Celeste, oddly enough, but I feel like they situate us in a space between the real and the surreal or the dreamlike, and so I never quite. I kind of feel like I know where I am, but I'm unsettled in this kind of interesting and wonderful way, and also like today he said, "Is it the rain or a dream of the rain?" And I feel like that captures this sense about his work, and also his poems are full of these wonderful objects and images, gemstones, candles, scarlet flowers. And also these unexpected, gorgeous lines like today, there's an unexplained jewel in everything, which just takes my breath away. And I feel like that says everything in a way, or at least everything about what attracts us to art or makes us want to make art. And then with Celeste, and Harry, you referred to this, there's a wry and delicate humor I find in her titles and her lines. And today I was struck by how important place is in her poems, as well as family and the visual, like the photographs we heard about today. Great details, and I feel like her poems are personal, but in a very gentle way. If gentle's the right word, I don't feel like they're overbearing or confessional, which is, I guess, a dirty word these days. At least among my former students, it was. And today, this line I thought was so beautiful. She carried a pain like frostbite. That's just wonderful. End of notes.
Celeste.
Okay. Thank you both for being so incredibly sweet and flattering. All right. So what gets me about Jim's work is this sort of infinite Rolodex of images that he has at his disposal. Sometimes he'll mention a thing like a tractor part or something that I know in his own life he has never come across, and yet he has access to it. Whether that's the collective unconscious or not, I don't know, but it always impresses the heck out of me. His use of tone is very subtle in his work. The visual quality of his poems, I continually am attempting to make paintings based on sections of his poems because they're just so visual. And of course, there's the mystery, which is part of the fabric of them, and the kind of precision of language, which I really admire. And always they're warm and they connect in a human way that is wonderful. So thank you, sweetheart.
Well, you guys are also brilliant about not only within your writing, but what you hear from others and what you read. Mm-hmm. We have a few minutes left, so I have a couple of questions if we can.
Oh, hang on. I haven't done David yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I said thank you, and you figured that was my cutoff.
I thought I was off the hook.
No. And others have said this about David's work, so I'm not charting a new trail here, but his fearlessness, the vulnerability that he puts right out there, and kind of a documentary approach that is not ever self-absorbed or narcissistic. And it's, of course, compulsively readable in book form. I challenge you to pick up a book and put it down without getting most of the way through it. But and he takes in the world. I cover the waterfront. Well, David covers the past, the present, the entire universe, from Vienna sausages to you name it. He's there. He's on it, and it's all equally valuable and has its own jewel in it. So yeah, what a delight. Okay, over to you, Harry.
Thank you, and forgive me for my interruption.
It's okay.
So we have like 4 minutes left. So let's start with one question and just figure a minute each. What is poetry? Start with you, Jim, and then David and Celeste.
What is poetry? The word's been used in many different contexts over many different centuries. So the only useful example or definition I can give is a personal one. But poetry, as I understand it, most essentially is a quality that arises usually from a composition in language, sometimes from other sources, a quality that seems to suggest that there is much more to the world of experience than I had previously suspected. In other words, something that opens up my senses to what William Blake calls the infinite in everything.
David?
Similarly, I feel like it's one of the few places where you really get the truth about human experience. And and I used to say this to my students all the time, like in day-to-day life, most people don't talk about their feelings. In fact, some people go their whole lives without talking about their feelings. And poetry is a place where you can express and hear that.
Celeste?
I'm just going to slide sideways off that and say that poetry is an art form that's portable, lightweight, clean, and can be done anywhere by yourself at almost no cost. That's it.
Spoken like a true painter.
Okay, now, Jennifer, I was going to ask another quick question, but
go ahead.
Well, my quick question, and just take about 30, 40 seconds each. What attracts you, because I know each one of you do it in your own way, what attracts you about writing about cinema? Jim?
About writing about cinema, like my poem about Sunset Boulevard or something. Well, what attracts me to writing poems about cinema is the fundamental paradox of cinema, which is that it's a private experience that's shared with the public. Everybody has his or her own individual experience of Chinatown, as David's brilliant found poem admits. But it's the same movie. Over to you, David.
Put on the spot again. I don't know. All I can say, I love movies so much, and I've always loved movies, and I don't think I could have gotten through my adolescence without movies. At that point, the pure escapism of them, but later much more.
And just quickly, there was a recent quote that said that we're excited about movies, watching them to see what happens, not what happens next. But a poem is all about what happens, and you can view it without time or causation.
Well, this is just, before I turn it over to Jennifer, this is a blessing from all three of you. You're just such brilliant poets, and you have such care for your fellow poet too. And you've all given so much to the poetry community. So thank you, James Cushing, David Trinidad, Celeste Goyer, and here's our wonderful director, Jennifer Clymer.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, dear Harry. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. I was going to offer, the reason I hopped on a little early, the other incredible thing about poetry is, like a painting, it is open to interpretation. So whether you're hearing it from the person who knows the intention of the meter and what to emphasize and what to de-emphasize, or if you're reading it and your own internal voice is adding that layer, it's got such incredible opportunity for different subtext depending on the person taking in the artwork.
And Jennifer, you're absolutely right. It adds to the richness of the language too. And that's what we like, right? The added richness. And so my announcement is next Tuesday, we have 4 wonderful poets and actors who are going to read from the selected poems of Langston Hughes, who's one of my favorite poets of all time. So thank you all.